Massaya means twilight, and it's el-masa. When you're walking in a street in a village in Lebanon or in Beirut, you say el-kher, evening of grace, good wishes to a passing by person.
Hey, this is Harman Skurnick, and welcome to another episode of Skurnick Unfiltered. Today I have with me again the illustrious Cody Stevenson, who is the portfolio manager for all things in the world.
Mostly the Southern Hemisphere, but in this case, the ancient world.
Yes, the ancient world. We're focusing today on Lebanon, where we are privileged, I would say, to represent one of the very best producers in the country, Massaya. You sat down with the proprietor of Massaya. His name is Sami Ghosn, who's a wonderful human being. Really like him, and really like his wines, as well as his arak, which is a distilled spirit that originated in the Middle East. I think it's similar to ouzo in Greece, for example.
And pastis, but yeah, that's where the Massaya story all starts in the late 1990s. He was making it with his brother and selling it out of his family's pharmacy, and that's where the Massaya name was born. Massaya means twilight in Arabic, and masa is part of the evening greeting. It's an important part of Lebanese culture. Lebanon is this incredible cradle of many different influences in the Middle East, and he was really, one of the first wineries in the late 90s. I think there were 4 in all of Lebanon.
3 besides Chateau Musar.
Exactly. Then 30 years later, there's now 45, and Massaya, we're proud to say, was one of the first. The relationship with Skurnick, started breaking bread with him in a Lebanese restaurant here in New York City. And, now 4 years later, we represent the wines in all of our markets, and it's an incredibly important part of the portfolio.
Absolutely. And they're making both red and white wines. They make red wines in the Bekaa Valley, which was made famous by Chateau Musar. And the white wines come from a different part of Lebanon.
Mount Lebanon, yes, which is one of the highest mountains in all of the Middle East. And the winery sits there at the foothills of the ski slopes. And they grow their Obeidi and Sauvignon Blanc and Chardonnay for their white wines and to use in their arak. The red wines, I think, have this incredible Mediterranean, feel to them. There's this spice and acidity that I think is so iconic to the entire region.
And the whites are refreshing and with good acidity and good minerality, which you wouldn't necessarily expect from the Middle East, but
no, you think of the desert and think of very flat land, but this is an incredibly mountainous region that you would look at and think this is a place where they would make great wine, and they do.
Maybe that explains why Sami partnered with a couple of very famous French winemakers in this venture. Daniel Brunier, who's the owner and winemaker of Vieux Telegraph in Châteauneuf-du-Pape, is a partner, and also Dominique Ebrard.
He formerly co-owned Cheval Blanc.
Cheval Blanc.
Yeah.
Oh.
In the 90s when Sami was introduced to him. I think that Sami is proud to shout those connections because, Sami and Rumsey don't come from a winemaking background. They've taught themselves everything and really are greatly appreciative of the influence and the partnership of those two important winemaking families in France. And there's just a very rich historical tradition and connection between the countries of France and Lebanon. So I think it only makes sense. And there's a lot of grapes that were brought over by the Phoenicians thousands of years ago to France that have then found their way back to Lebanon, which I think is a pretty special story.
The wines are really fantastic. Growing wine in Lebanon can be challenging, especially now. There's politics, wars, various obstacles. Somehow Sami comes to the market with a smile on his face always, and throughout all those challenges produces consistently high quality wines. I don't know how he does it.
Yeah, Sami always finds a way, and it really is a family affair. His parents helped him, and Rumsey found the winery. His sister is involved. His kids are involved. It takes a village, and in challenging times, I think that's so important to be able to lean on your family. But the wines keep getting better and better, and I think that the same hospitality and warmth that you get from Sami and Rumsey, you also find in the wines themselves.
That's a good way to put it. Well, let's sit back, feel that warmth, and listen to your conversation with Sami Ghosn of Massaya.
Great. Here today, the very old world, the ancient world. I am joined by Sami Ghosn of Massaya. Sami, good morning.
Good morning, Cody. I love New York.
We love New York here too. We're very excited to finally have you and be able to fully welcome you to Sternick HQ. It's safe to say that you've had a pretty epic story. Could you walk us through the last 25 years of Massaya, at least the footnotes?
Wow. Massaya is started with us playing in the fields in the Bekaa Valley in the early 70s. My parents would gather friends every weekend, and those were the memories of us having food, playing with the dogs and the horses and playing around. And all of a sudden, everything turned dark. And in 75, trouble started. And we were kind of pushed away and ended up in France for studies. Then I came to the US in the early 90s. And all these years, Lebanon didn't leave me. I had a lavish life. I was much more fortunate than other friends of mine that gave their lives for us to be able to stay on this land. So I always refused to sell. And in the early 90s, I decided to come back and claim the land from squatters. And once the squatters off the land, I met an elderly gentleman that suggested to me making arak, as I had no clue what to do with the land. And I said, what's arak? He said, we have to sort some grapes, which we did, made wine and made the first distillings. We rented a still, and his wife would cook for us all those flavors now you are very much used to globally, and particularly in the US, hummus and tabbouleh and baba ghanoush. And we would watch the still, and it was the fall, the first raindrops on the earth, and the smell of the Bekaa land. Just, I knew that was the place I am meant to be at. And this is how the Massaya Blue Bottle came to life. I started selling the arak at my parents' pharmacy in jars with handcrafted labels, organic, handmade, and people came for more. My dad said, Sami, you must be doing something right. And the rest actually is history. And then through a gentleman that came to sell me corks, I got a call one day, and I said, yes, sir, what can I do for you? And he says, I provide corks to the wine industry in Lebanon. I said, well, introduce me to winemakers from France willing to invest with me in a winery. I'll buy corks from you. And by luck, I meet Dominique Ebrar. His family owned Cheval Blanc. He was fascinated by Lebanon, the history, the Temple of Bacchus. He said it would be a dream come true for me to produce wine at the foothills of the Temple of Bacchus. And then came in the Brunier family from Vieux-Télégraphe. We've been partners for almost 28, 29 years now. And this is how the wine range came to life.
What was the first wine that you produced?
It was 1998. At first, we did not have single vineyards as we do now.
Yeah.
As you know, with our reds, the Colombier, Terrasse, and Capes are single vineyards. The first red was called Classique. And it was a blend of these, finding the notes and the essence of the Bekaa with different terroirs and blendings. And it evolved a little by little until 2013. We had 3 single vineyards for the red.
What was the industry in Lebanon like when you first started? Obviously, I mean, Lebanon has one of the most ancient winemaking traditions of any country in the world. But I think with the Civil War, and in the 90s, I think that you were, and this is sort of probably a kind of pivotal moment for Lebanese wine.
Yes. There were about 3 known wineries.
Okay.
The big names like el-kher is the largest producer, still is, Kefraya, Muzar. And the renaissance of wine in Lebanon came after the First World War with the fall of the Ottoman Empire. We kept on making wine during the 400 or 500 years of Ottoman ruling, but quite a bit in the hiding, in the mountains and for the church, in the Christian rituals. But winemaking came back with the Allies coming in and the French armies, and I think the average was 4 liters of allowance of wine a day per soldier. So imagine how much they had to plan. This is why they brought a lot of grapes like Carignan and Cinsault. So we came into play early 90s. My thoughts were Lebanon and the memories of our youth and what I knew Lebanon was about and the true values, and discovered later the immense heritage of Lebanon since the Phoenicians and our ancestors. All I did not know. And the first shipping of wines, the Grand Cru at the time of the ancient civilizations, was called Bibline. It stemmed from Byblos, to the Romans, to the Greeks, to the pharaohs of Egypt. and then the Temple of Bacchus that came after. The only wine region mentioned in the Old Testament in the Bible is Lebanon, believe it or not. So there is so much essence. The first wild crossing of grapes occurred in the Levant, the heart of which is Lebanon, 7,000 years ago. Originally, we thought the vine came from Georgia through Mesopotamia to the gateway of the Old World, which is modern-day Lebanon, through Phoenicia. But actually, no, it was recently discovered through DNA that those are two different species.
It was simultaneous.
Yes, simultaneously. And the one that came about in the Levant and traveled through the Old World very much with the Phoenicians is the current Vitis vinifera we work with now. So I did not know all this. Certainly, Dominique Ebrard knew more than me and telling me I would love to make wine at the foothills of the Temple of Bacchus. But believe it or not, Claudie, in our little experience getting closer to the Temple of Bacchus, the better the grapes, the better the vines, the better the wine. So what the Romans and the Phoenicians knew is still true to date. It's unbelievable how much this came more and more into our attention and into our knowledge and understanding of wine.
This is a family project. This is you and your brother.
Yes, certainly. It's actually not just my brother and me. It started with my parents, Amal and Michel, that acquired the land in the Bekaa and in Fara, where we later on in 2014 built our winery in altitude over on Mount Lebanon, where we produce our Massaya Blanc and cellar our vintage reds. But my parents acquired the land in the early 70s. I came back from the US in the early 90s, where Ramzi was still working and studying in Chicago. And my sister Ghada, who's the eldest, has always been a driving force behind us and is also involved when it comes to the glue of the family. She's always been our guardian angel. And Ramzi, with time, became organically the winemaker. Luckily, in 2005, he fired the winemaker because with our French partners, we used to bring a winemaker every year that had worked after interviewing and stuff. He was upset because he was putting too much sulfites. And so literally fired him. And he said, I'm taking the control of that. And Ramzi had studied marketing and finance, nothing to do with winemaking. And believe it or not, since 2005, the wines have been evolving drastically. And 2006, a war occurred between Hezbollah and Israel. We were caught in the fire. Anthony Bourdain was coming to see us as well. And luckily, we had Ramzi as winemaker because no one would dare coming to the Bekaa. Bless my brother, he really salvaged the vintage and did it with so much passion that the wines became of, I think, an international quality.
Where does this name Massaya come from?
Yeah, Massaya, I'm often asked this name. A friend of mine, when I started, the arak was still in jars without a name transparent. And I went to an exhibition in Paris. We found blue bottles. Blue is firstly reminiscent purple blue of our Phoenician ancestors, the purple people that were referred to by the Greeks. Thanks to their dyeing the silk they brought all the way from Asia, along the other quality produced the spices and what have you, but they mastered dyeing the silk purple by grinding the murex, the seashell on our shores, purple, so they would be the purple people. And then we chose Massaya, it means twilight. And masa is the evenings, and it's the 1001 nights, it's the blue and the gold, and it is the Mediterranean, the devil's eye, and the blue is important in our part of the world. So Massaya means twilight, and it's el-masa. When you're walking in a street in a village in Lebanon or in Beirut, and you say masa el-kher, evening of grace, good wishes to a passing by person. So it has a bigger meaning, I get it. But once, bless his soul, the Prime Minister of Lebanon asked me to come see him. He said, is it Massaya, the coming prophet? Or no much prophecy other than making wine and arak and portraying the image of Lebanon.
That's for the drinker to decide, whether it's the second coming for them. We should try the wine.
I would love that. Shall we start with the rosé?
The rosé.
The rosé is from the Bekaa. It's 100% Cinsault. I would like to say about the rosé that we never bottle our rosés, nor white actually, before snow melt over on Mount Lebanon, because we like the sedimentation to happen naturally, organically. This is how our rosés last so beautifully with time. We don't filter the wines. It's a natural filtration, so you don't end up with sediments in the bottle and all of that, and wines that age beautifully well. So rosé is a go-to wine, and I love rosé, and it is a very popular in around the Mediterranean, as you know, with our dishes and what have you.
It's 100% Cinsault. This is stainless steel, or this is concrete for fermentation. Everything's natural yeast.
No industrial yeast. We don't use actually no pesticides, fertilizer, what have you. The wines are organic by default. It's very easy in Lebanon to make organic wines. And this is why one of the explanation that the first wild crossing of the Vitis vinifera occurred in the Levant or in Lebanon, thanks to the altitude and the 300 days of sunshine, very dry weather. So no real room for fungus, bugs, worms, what have you, would have to spray elsewhere. And the wines are a couple of weeks and up in altitude, couple of months under snow in the winter. So whatever has not been wiped out by the sun and the dryness is caught within the minus 0 Celsius degrees. So perfectly organic and with the beautiful acidity, thanks to us not irrigating and the vines having to find the moisture and the nutrients deep down in the soil. It's mostly clay limestone in Lebanon, and you get this backbone that plays beautifully well with cuisine. So it's not just a rosé to drink and sip. It's a rosé that has a personality.
And I think you can clearly see from this is the 23 vintage. This will age gracefully for years to come.
Shall we go to the Colombier?
That would be my honor.
Thank you. Colombier in French is bird's house, the dovecote. And before we fled, we had in place a bird's house. And when I recuperated the land in the 90s, we put it back in place. Those are the vines of the original property of Massaya, where we have the winery and the distillery. And this is Cinsault, Grenache, and Tempranillo.
So Tempranillo, this is interesting. I feel like talking to our customers this week, I feel like it's piqued their curiosity. What you planted the Tempranillo vines? What inspired that? And I think that it's the history of French grapes is in Lebanon is something that is spoken about. But and what else do you have planted? You have Obeidi planted for the Blanc and for the arak. Do you have other indigenous varieties planted on the in your vineyards too?
Yes, predominantly Obeidi. Obeidi is for the arak making, but Tempranillo we have re-imported rootstock from Spain because Phoenicians, our ancestors, were the one that planted Tempranillo in Spain, and we had a new parcel to plant. One of the colleagues at the time that worked in Rioja said, why don't we try Tempranillo? And it was a great idea. The Tempranillo does superbly well in Ta'nail. And again, Phoenician-inspired Tempranillo speaks for itself. There is no oak in this wine. It's a wine that is so natural and naked. We have no makeup to it. It's really the expression of the terroir at best. 98% of the quality of a wine is in the vines, and those are the grapes that are on the property between Cinsault, Grenache, and Tempranillo, vinified in concrete vats.
Not that there couldn't be, great, Pinot Noir planted in Lebanon at altitude, but I think coupled with the Phoenician history, I just think to recognize, to see the potential of some, grape like Tempranillo that does so well in warmer climates in Spain, and to bring it back, I think that's what I find so fascinating about, how the viticulture is changing around the world. And we see that, and we were talking about it earlier this week in South Africa. We're seeing it in South America, where people understand that, with global warming, with their climate, not every region in the world is destined for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir and Cabernet, and to embrace that. And I'm excited to see where Lebanese viticulture trends towards.
Exactly. We like to think we're working with Mediterranean varietals that are more in tune with our climate and with our terroir. And as we go along, I would love you to see the Terrasse de Baalbek. Baalbek is where we have the temple of Bacchus in the Bekaa Valley. And this is a Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre. It's a GSM. Wonderful expression of the terroir. You're already into more notes that have more depth. They're a bit might be more animal, more expressive of this region that is a bit higher than Ta'nail, overlooking the temple of Bacchus. And with time, Cody, you were talking about the French influence. The French kept the books in Lebanon. In our early days, we went to old monasteries to see what would be Grenache in Lebanese or what would be Syrah, and we saw the vines that are all intermixed and with different names in every village and every monastery and every mountain. So we decided to stay on with the French names. And while Danielle Brunier would tell me, Sami, look at this. This is exactly Grenache. She would look at the leaf of the vine, and we went with French names.
Yeah. This is always, I think my favorite wine that you make. It has like such freshness but still like this concentration and depth. And I think that, it's really hard to beat, in terms of the price for quality ratio there. It's gorgeous.
Thank you for pouring the reserve. This is a wine we pride ourselves to cellar. Those are wines that got a lot of acclaim when we started. We got points and we got recognition internationally. And little by little, we morphed into wines that are more single vineyards, expressing terroir. And certainly the Reserve is the wine that captured all our beginnings of Massaya with the full-bodied 50% cab, but with quite a bit of Mourvèdre and Syrah as well. So it was Bordeaux meeting the Rhone in the Bekaa Valley with our partners.
Which is, we had Brunier.
Brunier, Ebrard. And at the time, Ebrard still owned Cheval Blanc. And this is why you have the signatures of the three families on the back labels of the Reserve.
We're starting to notice here in the U.S., which I think is exciting, more Lebanese wineries. Do you feel like this is a very important moment in Lebanese wine over the last 10 years?
In frankness and modesty, we started the revival of the Lebanese wines. When Massaya started, as I said, you had the 3-4 well-established wineries. And I love to see more wineries and coming about young ideas, different regions. They're planting different varietals, and I love that. I mean, it's very healthy because Lebanon is exposed in a way that is more true to its place and values and truth. And I love to see wines from Lebanon that are coming from different regions with personalities and different winemaker approaches. And I understand that this is all very healthy and very good, I think.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking the same thing when you're talking about that next generation of winemakers. You have children; they're still young, but do you see any of your children taking on Massaya?
We don't force it.
Yeah.
As long as it comes organically within the family, we will welcome it for sure. No, they're definitely interested, and they know it's a work of passion, and they know it's the legacy of Lebanon and our family in Lebanon, and they might be still young, but they absorb what they feel, and they have their own interpretation, and it's beautiful to see them engaged. And Ramzi and I and my sister Ghada, we never shield them away from our daily ventures in the vineyards or in the winemaking or in the traveling and meeting our partners globally.
That's great. What excites you about wines, whether it's yours or other wineries around the world? Like, what to you is like, I don't know if there is a perfect wine, but what do you look for?
Yesterday, I was in New Jersey. I'm a bit far from home. I travel quite a bit. And the lady that greeted us, wonderful Natalie, I believe the name is, says, "I admire what you do." And that really touched me. She said, "I love what you do. I admire what you do. I already have your rosé here, and it's going to be featured by the glass." And she was really knowledgeable about wine. We tasted and chatted. It reminded me the moment that Anthony Bourdain, bless his soul, came to the winery. He came to see us in 2010, and we had this memorable day together of sharing through cuisine, through culture, through discussions, and of course, the wines were setting the tone, and we finished with arak. And it was really a moment that was pivotal to me because he, bless him, Anthony said to me, "Sami, Lebanon is the most fascinating country I visited in my life. It changed my life, and I decided to become a father after being in Lebanon in 2006, where he got trapped and was evacuated with the Marines and stuff." So he said, "I've never seen such a melting pot of cultures, flavors." And you see, Lebanon is a tiny country with many minorities that were persecuted around us along the years, be you Armenian, Kurdish, Druze, Shiite Muslim, Christian, Jew, whatever.
Yeah.
And this mixicity of ethnicities made the food so rich and the cuisine so rich, and the climate helped a lot. It's not a plain, it's mountains, rigid mountains that are very hard to access and so forth. And when he said that, And this is the expression behind Massaya. When I was in Hoboken, New Jersey, a young lady telling me, I admire what you do, touched me so much. And this is the satisfaction I get.
Yeah.
I love wine in general. I love wines when there is no forcing of wine, when wines express organically the terroir, and it's quite available around the Mediterranean. But what I enjoy most is sipping a glass of arak with friends.
Okay, well, let's do that.
Okay. So, for arak, which actually was discovered by the Moors, the Arabs of North Africa in the 7th century, they discovered distillation. Anise, a botanical that was dominant in our Eastern Mediterranean, is quite healthy. Actually, it's alkaline and it's very good for your guts. So people drink it differently. You can have it neat, as we're having it now, with a bit of water. If you wish, my mom, bless her, would have it neat. And when you add water, look what happens. The essential oil of anise crystallizes. I was saying this to Bourdain, it blooms. And then you add a bit of ice. This is how we usually have it. Would you like to make yours?
Yeah, sure.
And we have it here, Cody. At Massaya, we make it in traditional pot stills, copper stills. It's very labor demanding. We get the finest anise seeds, fresh every year. And while anise seed is planted in Lebanon, Turkey, and Syria, Hina has the finest. We age it a couple of years in amphora because we blend it. Even the sweetness you get, the peppery notes, the spices, it's just the botanical aniseed. At Massaya, there is no additives, no colorings, no sweeteners. It's a craft spirit that takes a lot of labor, a lot of work, and it's gaining steam and growing organically in all markets thanks to the quality, because we don't have shortcuts in making this at all.
Just like your wines, a terroir-driven, expression of what Lebanon is, your family's history, and hundreds, if not thousands of years before that. Well,
cheers.
Thank you, Sami.
To the many friends that are to visit us and keep on visiting us and recognizing Lebanon for the quality of its produce, being wine or arak. Thank you, Cody.
Skurnik Unfiltered is recorded at Skurnik Wines and Spirits headquarters in the Flatiron District of New York City. If you found the conversation interesting, please consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a review. You can stay up to date on our show and upcoming events by following Skurnik Wines on Instagram and visiting our website at skurnik.com.